To find the hidden city, go south along the shore until you find the pink fish. Then chase the heart of the serpent to the Silver Crown Mountain where the twins confer. This is the star Alphard, the solitary one, the brightest star in the western sky in the heart of the Hydra constellation. 2,000 years ago, it's set in the west. That's where I hope to find the hidden city. In the Maya long count calendar, all dates have 5 numbers. This numeral was damaged to look like a 13, but what if it's really an 8? That's a 2,000-year difference, and the constellations would be in a completely different position, so the star path would lead west to somewhere in Peru. The last number on the left pillar is 0. This dagger is the key of Shakshel. I found an inscription near it. The key to Ishel's heart unlocks the cleansing. This is the path to the hidden city. It seems to describe a series of trials, entering through a jaguar mouth. A spider and an eagle that rises toward a temple, leading to a serpent with a silver eye. This is a serpent-shaped statuette I found in an ancient Maya tomb in the lost city of Paititi. It's yet another clue in my search for the silver box of Ishel. There appears to be some irregular edges, like a key. But a key to what? A clue to where Lopez took the silver box. The heart of the serpent is in the cup, near the many stone faces. The silver box of Ishel, unlocked by the key of Shakshel and used to summon the god Kukulkan. Funny how something so slight could be fundamental in creating or averting the end of the world. 24th of November, 1603. I accompanied Andreas Lopez, a group of 12 soldiers and 2 Molosses through the jungle. The directions the Jesuits provided to Trinity were excellent, so we discovered the hidden city with little difficulty. The natives of the city welcomed us warily, but we plied them with gifts, and they reluctantly allowed us to enter the city, unaware of our true intentions. Lopez has begun to search for the artifact while we distract the city's leaders. 29th of November, 1603. After dinner, Lopez left the city. I followed, worried he might not return. I found him standing by the riverbank, lips moving as though in prayer. Not wishing to disturb him, I waited. His communion with God must have lasted through the night, and I regret to admit I fell asleep, for the next thing I knew, Lopez stood smiling serenely over me, the morning sun behind him, creating a halo. He helped me to my feet and clasped me in a strong embrace. "True Elos, I know where to find the artifact," he whispered in my ear. 26th of November, 1603. At dinner, Lopez asked me if I believed these heathens were worthy of the artifact's alleged power. I had to admit that the Paititians seemed noble and industrious. However, their taut skin, stretched tight over sinewy muscles, and lack of shame made them more similar to beasts. "And what of our leaders in the society?" he then asked. "Should they be able to wave their perfumed and ring fingers in any direction and expect us to obey, to return and sit at their side when they beckon? Do they not treat us as inferior beings, as beasts as well?" I had no answer. What he'd said was heresy and treason, but in some way, I wondered if it wasn't the truth. This rosary has 6 decades instead of the usual 5. A very ornate example of the brigantine version. There appears to be an engraving. Andreas Lopez. This leather-bound volume of prayers seems to be from the late 16th century. It's in remarkable condition. Someone decided this depiction of Christ's death needed a little sprucing up. It's amazing how the beliefs of disparate cultures can become intertwined over time. The ink is badly faded. It's difficult to make anything out. Savage, outrageous, betrayal. And this isn't parchment paper. It's thicker. Animal hide or human, maybe. 30th of November, 1603. With a local man as a guide, Lopez, the soldiers and I set out from the city before first light. Just as well, as a terrible flu began to spread through the population. Lopez is convinced this artifact does not lie in the city itself, but somewhere just outside. I asked if it was not somewhat hypocritical to enlist the help of those loathsome people. Do not loathe them, he said, any more than you would these molosses. They are all creations of the Lord our God, as are we. I told him I was stunned to hear him speak in this fashion, but he took my hands and we prayed. The energy of his faith ran from him to me, until I felt the chains of doubt fall from my heart. Trinity is an ancient and secretive organization ruled by an Illuminati-like High Council that has existed since the time before Christ. They are determined to find and exploit all of the ancient artifacts of the world. I've been hunting them since I found out they killed my father. Jonah and I have tracked down so many Trinity cells since then, but all of the other ruins and tombs we found were destroyed except the one in Cozumel. I need to find out what they're after, what their endgame is, and stop them. Dr. Pedro Dominguez is an archaeologist and expert in pre-colonial Maya history. My father mentioned him in his notes more than once. That's the lead Jonah and I were following up on when we came to Cozumel. His excavation in Cozumel was one of the last places my father visited before he was killed. If there is a connection, I want to find out what it is. I thought that Dr. Dominguez was only the leader of the local Trinity cell. I never imagined that he would turn out to be the leader of the High Council of Trinity. Ixchel and Shakshel are two faces of the same goddess. Ixchel is the young woman and represents life and healing. She's associated with the full moon. Shakshel is the old woman and represents death. She is associated with the new moon. Together as the twins, symbols of duality in the cycle of life and death. According to legend, the key and Shakshel and the silver box of Ixchel were created in the heavens for one purpose, to destroy and restore the sun. The ritual can only be performed during an eclipse. Once the ritual is completed, the chosen avatar will hold the power of the sun within them. Having become the god of creation, Kukulkan, they must sacrifice and release that power to restore the sun. But the silver box tempts people with visions of an idealized world they could create with that power, a fantasy of their own mind, an entirely new reality, only at the cost of destroying this one. Trinity's influence is even wider than I thought. They have controlled Paititi for centuries, where they are known as the Cult of Kukulkan. Their highest-ranking members in Paititi are called the Serpent Guards. They are picked at a young age from among the best warriors in Paititi, and fight alongside the Jaguar warriors and the Eagle Archers. Unuratu is the rightful queen of Paititi. After a famine that nearly wiped out the city, her family was ousted from power by the cult of Kukulkan. Her husband, Sayiri, died hunting for food on the outskirts of Paititi. Amaru, or Dr. Dominguez, Sayiri's brother, felt responsible and took control of the city, using resources from Trinity to feed the Paititians until the famine passed. Even though Amaru saved the city, the cult, in his absence, now rules with arrogance and fear. Unuratu and her rebels are fighting to free the city from the cult of Kukulkan and restore its ancient bloodline. Unuratu was raised to believe it was her family's legacy, to complete the ritual of the silver box of Ixchel and restore the sun for another age. Dr. Dominguez is originally from Paititi. Trinity has had a presence in Paititi since the 1600s. The former leader of the High Council, Gualtiero de Luca Dominguez, an Italian cardinal, saw great potential in a little boy and trained him, like a son, to be his replacement. He moved up in the ranks until he became the leader of the High Council. He has lived most of his life outside of Paititi, returning often but not staying long. His real name is Amaru, but as the high priest of the cult in Paititi, Many people call him by his honorary title, Kukulkan. He has brought the key of Shakshal home from Cozumel and has assured his people he will use it to protect them. Amaru wants the silver box of Ishel to protect Paititi from the encroaching dangers of the outside world, but already he is being tempted by the possibility of remaking the world in his own image. Jonah is a survivor and a good friend. I met him several years ago on my first expedition on board the Endurance. He made me laugh the first time I spoke to him, calling me Little Bird. We've been through so much since then, and after I lost touch with my best friend Sam, Jonah was always there for me. He came with me to Katesh and helped me find the divine source, the artifact my father was looking for when he was killed. After I destroyed the divine source to keep it from Trinity's hands, Jonah helped me hunt them down, cell by cell. When I finished deciphering my father's notes, Jonah thought that Cozumel was the best place to start. At first, I didn't believe him, but he was right. The site in Cozumel was the only one we found that wasn't destroyed. Now I know why. Trinity knows there's a piece of the puzzle missing, and I need to find out what it is before they do. Commander Rourke is a highly trained, multi-decorated veteran of the US Special Forces. His extensive experience with highly classified and sensitive operations executed with deadly efficiency brought him to the attention of the High Council. They recruited him based on his record alone. He is the leader of Trinity's military forces and personally leads the Deacon teams, which have access to custom APCs called Paladins and special ops helicopters called Cardinals. He is Trinity's second in command, answering only to the High Council. While Dominguez is the heart of Trinity, Rourke is the fist. Rourke and Dominguez don't always see eye to eye, but each has a grudging respect for the other. The Ashiel are the descendants of the creators of the Key of Shakshal and the Silver Box of Ishel. In the centuries since Lopez stole the box 400 years ago, they lost their purpose. Now they protect the site where the ritual of the Silver Box will take place. Even though their minds have faded, their purpose remains intact. They will fight and repel anyone entering the holy city of the Serpent. They are led by a priestess known as the Crimson Fire. She represents Shakshal, and along with Ishel, she is charged with completing the ritual of the Silver Box and guiding Ishel in her sacrifice of the sun's power. Once it is completed, the Crimson Fire and all the Yashiel will return to the heavens where the key and the box were forged. Spanish Jesuit missionary Andres Lopez, a member of Trinity, was dispatched to find and retrieve the Silver Box of Ishel rumored to be in Paititi. Instead of bringing the box back to the Trinity High Council, he confessed the theft to his old friend, the Emperor of Paititi, Sinchichika, Unuratu's ancestor. Together they entered into a plot to hide the box from Trinity. Lopez went west of Paititi and founded the mission of San Juan, leaving a path of clues stretching back to Cozumel for Sinchichika's descendants to follow when the time came. But while building the mission and the deadly crypts below, the box's power corrupted Lopez's mind. He came to believe that no one was worthy of the power of the sun. He died alone in the dark, consumed by the power of the box. Soon after, disease severely wiped out the population of Paititi, taking Sinchichika and knowledge of the path of the clues that led to the silver box with it. A rubbing taken from the walls of the cenote. It is simply a large X and the word run. The detailed engravings on this helmet and its unusually good condition could mean this helmet was worn more as an accessory rather than protection in combat. Perhaps Lopez used it to project an air of importance. 1st of December, 1603. A strange noise woke me in the middle of the night. I found Lopez still staring at the fire, though now it was nothing but coals. I asked him if he'd heard the noise as well, but all he did was grunt. I wrapped a blanket about his shoulders and built up the fire again. Then I sat and listened. Far-off shrieks and hisses, likely distorted by the twists of the caverns. But underneath all those sounds, I heard a faint thrum. I've heard something like that before, but rarely and only when in the deepest of prayers. It sounded like the voice of God. Undated. Strange warriors pursued us through the caverns. We moved quickly, too quickly for an accurate description. Most of the soldiers fell in battle. They were valiant, but outmatched and outnumbered. Eventually, Lopez, I, and a single surviving soldier reached a magnificent temple. I cannot imagine how the people managed to build such a structure so deep underground. A massive door blocked our progress. Lopez, his voice frantic and breaking, ordered Perez, the last remaining conquistador, to stand guard while we worked on the mechanism. The door began to roll open. Our celebration of success was drastically cut short by the dying screams of Perez. The sound haunts me still. The door closed and a silence settled, so great and so vast I held my breath for fear of breaking it. Lopez turned to me, his eyes wild, a smile screwed across his face. He came toward me, arms outstretched, and for a moment fear flickered across my heart. But he pulled me close, his fingers digging into my shoulders. "I found it," he whispered in my ear, and releasing me, he wandered through this room, walls of pure jade reaching up to the heavens, completely covered in intricate etched mosaics and carved figures. I followed at a distance as he approached an altar, and watched as he lifted a silver box from it. 1st of December, 1603. We've entered a cenote not far from the city and set up camp in a small alcove. Lopez has spent the evening staring into the flames, utterly ensorcelled, his dinner untouched. Twice I attempted a conversation, but his silence rebuffed me each time. He is utterly focused on this artifact. If I were a more superstitious man, I would wonder if the artifact is speaking to him directly. The soldiers keep to themselves as well. They seem anxious for battle. One of their dogs stared at me all evening, as though I were to be his next meal. 21st of December, 1603. Lopez had grown pensive since exiting the cenote. I led the way, and when I turned toward the city, at last he spoke, calling for us to stop. Then, after swearing me to silence, he shared with me a secret he had been carrying. That night by the river, I met with the Emperor. I confessed to him who I was, who we are, and the true purpose of our visit. Trinity's fattened leaders, too busy with politics for even the morning's prayers, are not worthy of the box. The Emperor and I agreed that the only way to keep it safe from them was for me to claim it, take it far from here and hide it until one of the Paititi royal line, a chosen one, can follow his antecedents' clues and rediscover it. Having thus unburdened himself, Lopez turned on his heels and set a course deeper into the jungle. Brother de la Cruz appeared one day, emerging from the jungle, breathing new life into the mission. There were just the three of us when he arrived, and Sister Dorotea had been ill for many weeks. He and his associate began to work that first day. By the next week, de la Cruz had recruited a workforce of 36. They had prepared the bell tower and worked the fields, planting crops. Brother de la Cruz aims to make us self-sufficient. We'd spent so long alone out here, I'd worried we'd lose God's ear. Lo and behold, we not only had his ear, but he sent another to act as his hands as well. The others are worried that Brothers de la Cruz and Serrano will not return. I have so far maintained they will, that they always have. But in my heart I am beginning to believe we have seen the last of them, and that grief weighs heavily. We will continue their work. Either they will return to find we have not forgotten the teachings, or they will look down on us from above and bless our continued labors. 25th of December, 1603. It has been 4 days since we turned away from the city. We traveled in silence and in circles, guided by a confusion of grief, relief, and celebration. Lopez and I exited the jungle and landed in a clearing, under the gaze of several faces carved into the side of the mountain. Lopez had an episode, as he later called it. He threw himself in front of the faces and screamed for forgiveness. The heaviest sin on his heart was abandoning Perez to the strange warriors. They had grown close over the journey. Try as I might, I could not console him, so I built a fire and waited, as he decreed his actions and pleaded for forgiveness from the silent stone faces. 26th of December, 1603. Lopez woke me, having already prepared a Spartan breakfast. "This is where we were meant to be," he said, a cold determination in his voice, so very different from how he acted just the day before. I finished my meal as he spoke of holy retribution, how he had acted in error, but now God had put his hands on his shoulders and shown him the path to walk. "We will spread the true word of God from this small mission," he said, pointing to an adobe building just beyond the stone faces. "We will prepare the path for the chosen one to follow, for only he who does will be worthy of this box." 30th of December, 1603. Lopez has just returned from a nearby village, and with him came a group he says will follow him and help us with construction. There was something strange about his behavior. I attributed it to the long journey through the jungle. That night, however, he admitted what had been bothering him. "They followed me," he whispered. "The others." He walked off. I spent that sleepless night worrying about his deviations toward madness. 18th of December, 1604. I've neglected this journal for far too long. We've worked hard to build the mission. Every day more people arrive. Native villagers seeking conversion, soldiers tired of war, others whose faith has been tested by the long, dangerous journey through the jungle, all lured by Lopez's gospel of purity through labor. We work from sunrise to sunset, and then Lopez, or Angel de la Cruz as he now calls himself, spends his evening preaching the mission's purpose, to test the chosen one. He's calmed considerably, and if he believes something pursues him still, he keeps it to himself. Tomorrow we begin to build a library, where the box will safely rest until it is ready to be found by the chosen one. A wheel-lock pistol, never mass-produced and banned in the Holy Roman Empire, ostentatiously decorated, a bit much for a missionary, but maybe a fitting weapon for an egoist such as Lopez. There's some damage to the pommel, but otherwise the weapon seems in fine condition.
This enigmatic illustration, recovered from a cursed and empty mausoleum, might be what our brave adventurer needs to finally find the lost treasure of the White Queen. She's managed to decipher the ancient text and has found a series of clues. A set of coordinates, a giant bat, and a series of game pieces in a line. The intrepid Lara will have to figure out what they all mean. I just wanted to thank you for your discretion, as well as the work you have done. The vault has been constructed exactly to my specifications. The final payment will be sent at the end of the week. The delay was due to an accounting error, which has now been rectified. Yours, Richard Croft. It has taken our hero years to piece this map together, spending nights in dusty libraries going through ancient tomes, exploring sunken ships, stripped of treasure, and chasing down any lead, no matter how faint it may be. If she can recover the treasure, our brave adventurer may prove herself worthy of becoming Lord Richard Croft's assistant. I have thought about it many times, and I'm still adamant that Lara be spared from this terrible grief, as you call it. Having her constantly thinking about her mother will only be more painful. It is better for her to be a child and not be burdened by such heavy thoughts. If you do not desist in this campaign of yours, I will not hesitate to terminate your employment at Croft Manor. I think this is from when we walked the El Memsha. I don't remember much, except for how spicy the bazaar smelled. Mum looks so happy. So does Dad. It's not fair. Why did she have to die? This looks like a figure from that game Mum and Dad used to play. But why is it out here, in the playground? There's an A scratched in the bottom, for Amelia. I miss you, Mum. Sir, I understand these last few years have been more than difficult for you. We all miss Amelia terribly. However, I worry Lara has begun to forget what little she knew about her mother. A terrible thing. I realise it is not my place to pry, but have you reconsidered talking to her about Amelia? My belief is that it would help you get over your tremendous grief, and bring you two closer.
Cinnabar was used in the ancient past for producing a bright orange pigmentation on ceramics, murals, tattoos, and in religious ceremonies. This is a traditional foot plough, still used in the Andes today, even outside Paititi. Sometimes the simple ways are still the best. The canopa serves as a receptacle for offerings of cocoa and animal tallow. The stuffed canopa is thrown into the farmer's field at the start of the harvest season as a gift for Pachamama, the mother god. It is said, if the present is accepted, the farmer will yield large crops in a successful breeding season. The Inca used a combination of freeze-drying and salt to preserve just about anything edible. Charqui and chunos are basically meat and potatoes. Delicious. These ceremonial ceramic jars are used to store corn beer or chicha. The bottom of these apu are usually pointed, to aid when pouring into smaller serving containers. The people of the Andes have been perfecting the art of weaving for thousands of years. This chuspas is a wonderful example, woven of llama or alpaca hair and traditionally used to carry cocoa leaves. It clearly highlights the weaver's skill. Beautiful. This is a little bit unusual. It shows herds of sheep, llamas, and goats. But one farmer wouldn't usually tend 3 distinct herds like this. That one llama, alone on the hill, that must be Urcachile, the Incan god who watches over animals. Urcachile was often depicted as a llama. This is a dedication from all the local herders to the one who protects their flocks, thanking Urcachile for the preservation of their livelihood. This is a dedication to Supe, god of death and ruler of Uku Pasha, the Incan underworld. It entreats him to come forth with his legions of demons and to converge on this site, where the local people will do him honor with written poems extolling his greatness or offerings of food and drink. By paying him the respect he deserves in this way, the local people pray he will only take those he must, and not harm any others of their community unnecessarily. A dragon, this must be depicting Pachamama, the Incan goddess of motherhood, earth, and time. She presided over fertility, the harvest, and planting. Her body was the mountains, and she was also the cause of earthquakes. People used to make miniature pieces of clothing, with highly intricate designs solely for the purpose of burning them in dedication to her. That would account for the scorch marks on the floor. And those brown stains must be llama blood, another popular sacrifice. This must be Mama Zara. I always thought her forms of worship were a fun tradition. She was the Incan goddess of grain, and her name means maize mother. So if ever a farmer found a strange maize plant, they would dress it up like a doll in honor of her. She was also the goddess of willow trees, so sometimes the farming communities would hang one of their maize dolls from a willow tree and dance around it for her. There's no mistaking that bright golden disc. Inti, the most important god of the Inca. He was the god of the sun, protector of the people, and the provider of warmth and light. Some legends also credit him with teaching humans the ways of civilization. and the Incan emperors were either considered his lineal descendants or physical incarnations of Inti on Earth, depending on which emperor you asked. This depicts the story of Viracocha, the father of all creation. He formed the heavens, the earth, the sun and stars, the moon, time itself, and all living beings, including the other gods. At first, Viracocha was considered to be the supreme god of the Inca, but with time that honor passed to his son, Inti, the god of the sun. Still, Viracocha retained his link to the sea. His name literally means fat or foam of the sea. Konirea, the Incan god of the moon. He was relatively low in status, so he didn't have a mate. This tells the story of how he reshaped his sperm into the form of a fruit, which impregnated the goddess Kaviyaka when she ate it. His pregnancy came as quite a surprise since Kaviyaka was a virgin. But when her son was born, the boy immediately solved the question of his paternity by crawling right towards Konirea. Kaviyaka was so humiliated by Konirea's low standing that she fled with her son to Peru, where they turned into coastal rocks. This depicts the Incan god Kon. He was the son of Inti, the sun god, and Pachamama, the moon goddess. Kon was in charge of the wind and the rain, although in some legends he was only in charge of the weather that came from the south, while his brother Pachacamac was in charge of weather that came from the north. The monogram reads PHF. That has to stand for Percival Harrison Fawcett. August 9th. I'm leaving this page here to assuage any mystery should the rest of this quest prove as fatal for me as it has been for my party. My name is Jack Fawcett. I set out from Cuyaba, Mato Grosso on the 20th of April 1925 with my father, Percival Harrison Fawcett, and my best and longtime friend, Raleigh Rimmel, in search of Zed. I am the only one left. My father was lost to a pair of fierce jungle cats and Raleigh to Blunder. I myself am worse for wear but refuse to give up. My father believed we are close to Zed and so do I. So leaving two graves behind me, I will push west still with the hope that I am not walking to my own end. My dear Nina, once again the attempt to write is fraught with difficulty. However, those flies and bees and bugs galore that I wrote of before, all of those pinhead-sized stinging horrors, would have been a welcome attrition now that I faced down tooth and claw. I fought bravely, but the confrontation did not go in my favor. I will spare you the details out of compassion and not egotism. My wounds have been packed with yarrow and are stable, but I can feel infection in the blood. If you are reading this, then you know I have not survived this place. I instructed Jack not to go on. We lost young Rimmel a few weeks ago. This place, Nina, is not meant for the likes of men, and I will not rob you of a son as I have a husband. I'm tired now. Jack is sleeping by the fire, and I am certain that when he awakes, I will have slipped into my own slumber. I love you, Nina. Good night, Percy. Whatever weapon these were attached to has rusted away in the jungle's humidity. There's something etched on them. Can barely make it out. Percy Fawcett. But we must be thousands of kilometers from his last known position. In the early 19th century, this was used to measure the angle between an astronomical object and the horizon for the purposes of celestial navigation. There's an inscription here. To my son, Jack, may you never lose sight of your horizons. Within lies Raleigh Rimmel, friend, 1925. There's a little more. Beware, traps ahead. Do not hide good food from guests, because it will turn into worms. I've been doing some research, and I think we might be able to set ourselves up with a homemade refinery. It's going to be a lot of work though, and I can't do it alone. We'll need to build an oil tank, 1,000 litre capacity. The hull of the ship sunk in the river could be used for the tank. Any volunteers for a salvage mission? We'll need to set up a system to collect the crude. Who wants to be in charge of the bucket brigade? Once we get these things set up, we should be able to make diesel, kerosene, and petrol. Enough to fly the planes and eventually maybe even turn a profit. Too young to be amber. It may be copal. It smells wonderful. Continue to restrict the distribution of supplies. When we come through the area, it's better for everyone if your people are more concerned with their next meal or their child's fever, rather than with what's happening outside the village. As promised, once our investigation in the area is complete, we will provide monthly rations equal to double what you currently receive from CARE for 24 months, provided you keep up your end of the bargain. Cordially, Estella Diaz, Director of Community Outreach Programs, Order of Trinity. Looks like this is Abby's family tree. Her family has lived in this village for hundreds of years, and it seems as though she's somehow related to most of the villagers. This is Tonatiuh, the sun god and ruler of the Aztec heaven, which they called Tolan. He was literally the sun itself, the fifth one in fact, presiding over the fifth age after the 4 previous suns had perished. The Aztecs believed they had to sacrifice to him regularly, or else he would refuse to move across the sky. He was strongly associated with eagles, unsurprisingly, and was often depicted wearing their feathers and carrying weapons such as arrows and shields, or instruments specifically created for human sacrifice. A heavy-breasted woman wearing serpents around her waist. This is Coatlicue, whose name literally means skirt of snakes. She's also called Tetioinen, the mother of the gods. She gave birth to the moon and the stars, and had over 400 children, including the sun god Huitzilopochtli, who was also god of war. In addition to being a mother, she's seen as the devourer of all that lives. It's said that she was herself sacrificed to bring about this current age of creation. This is the Aztec god Ipatotec, who presided over the cycle of life, death, and rebirth in all its forms, including agriculture, vegetation in general, revolutionary conflict, and skin diseases. He tore his own skin off to feed his people, and is usually depicted wearing a suit of human flesh. This self-flaying may account for how often he's shown wearing stripes of different colors, predominantly yellow but also tones of red and tan. After wearing the flesh of their captives for 20 days, devotees of Ipatotec would hold on to the skins for their medicinal properties. That black and yellow stripe across his face marks this as Tezcatlipoca, a very important god to the Aztecs. Let's see if I can remember everything he was associated with. Jaguars, hurricanes, the night winds, the night sky, earth, the north, sorcery, beauty, temptation, leadership, war, strife, interpersonal conflict in general, and of course obsidian and divination. His right foot is often replaced with a piece of reflective obsidian, which the Aztecs used as mirrors, and these mirrors figured in shamanic rituals and prognostication. Tezcatlipoca literally means smoking mirror. Here's Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. The Aztecs worshipped him as a force of nature, responsible for the wind and the rain. In his most wrathful tempers, these natural phenomena became extreme, acting to cleanse the earth and sky. Through that, he also became associated with justice and with mercy. According to one legend, he had misbehaved with his sister, and to atone for his shame, he set himself on fire. Then, his ashes rose into the sky, and he became a god of light as well. An antique knife, possibly Aztec in origin. There's fresh blood on this blade, but it seems as though someone tried to wipe it clean. The edge hasn't been sharpened in years. Bulging eyes, fangs. This is Tlaloc, the Aztec god of rain and storms. In his gentler temperament, he's also the god of water and fertility, bestowing life and sustenance. But on the other side of the coin, he's responsible for thunder and lightning, hail, and the other destructive aspects of water, including erosion, affiliating him with caves, pools, and springs. Oddly enough, he lives in a mountain. His bird is the heron, but he's associated also with animals like snails, frogs, and other amphibians. These are the king and queen of Mictlan, the principal underworld of Aztec mythology. Micantecutli was the most prominent of the gods associated with death. He was often depicted as a skeleton with eyeballs in his skull sockets, and his responsibilities included looking after the souls of the departed. His wife, Mictlantecuhtli, presided over festivals of the dead, which are precursors to the modern Dia de los Muertos traditions. As it was foretold, heralded by the column of flame burning through the night, and the destruction of our temples, and the warnings of the weeping woman and the two-headed man, the strange warriors astride great deer arrived with the rising sun. They murdered the weak leaders and claimed the land and the people as their own. The heathen emperor begged for his life to be spared. He offered the Spanish crown a room of 3 by 6 faras to be filled once over with gold and twice with silver. The crown, with great and undue benevolence, accepted this offer. Within 2 months, the ransom had been paid. The idolater, however, could not be trusted. When the cursed plans of his general surprise attack were exposed, Atahualpa fell to his knees, begging for mercy. His fate would be decided by fair trial, as the right of any man in the Spanish Empire. He was found guilty and sentenced to die, but before the execution he accepted the Lord and will be welcomed in the heavens above. Excerpt from an objective account of Pizarro in Peru by Ochoa Aceves. These collars were used aboard the Nostromo, likely ferrying the captured indigenous people back to Spain to be sold as slaves. I wonder how it ended up here. After the long dry season, when the rains finally fell, the rats left their burrows looking for more food. They brought with them pests. Those afflicted bleed from their ears and nose and died in terrible pain and terrible numbers, leaving many once populous cities empty. We underestimated the natives, crafty bastards. Told us of a cave filled with gold, but they led us into a trap. The damn place was filled with monsters. After a ferocious battle, we pushed them back. The remaining men loaded the ship with whatever valuables we could find. The battle must have weakened the cavern, for when we tried to escape, it collapsed. I hear them out there, even now, digging through the barriers. Cusco belongs to Hernando Pizarro, rightful representative of the Spanish crown. Diego de Almagro has been captured. Rodrigo Orgones is dead, and the rest of their heretic forces routed. We made a crossing over the mountains and appeared on the coast outside of Cusco. Orgones marched to meet us at Cachupampa, a poor choice for his cavalry. His falconets threw Gonzalo's infantry charge into disorder, but the swampy ground prevented his seasoned cavaliers from true advantage. Our imperial arquebusier breached the river and unleashed hellfire on the opposition. Pizarro and Orgones led their respective cavalries, each merging to a single charging column, all of the men yelling, and met at full gallop. I had never seen such a thing. Somewhere in the chaos of battle, Orgones was shot and unhorsed and killed. They say the coward Almagro retreated from the battlefield atop an ass. Fitting. Excerpt from Alonso Luis's journal. Several hundreds have renounced their pagan beliefs and turned to the teaching of Catholicism. Our work here is different. The heathens must learn the language and then the teachings. Most are not receptive, but only come looking for conversion to the true Lord from fear of what might happen to them if they do not. No matter. All paths lead to God's light. In the evenings I rest easily, comforted by the conviction we will save these poor lost souls. Excerpt from the journal of Beltran, Ordinius Praedicatorum. Even rusted out, you can tell this is a quality weapon. It was likely manufactured in Toledo. The city was renowned for their steelwork. The notches on the blade suggest several battles. Each Taka of the cult of Kukulkan vows to tie his coat to that of Yutu, descendant of the Maya. Lacking any family of his own, each Taka will live with the parents of Yutu until such time that they have built their own home and hearth. Yutu vows to tie her coat to that of each Taka. She will bear him many children, which they will raise according to the traditions of both their peoples. A ceremonial whistle used during human sacrifices. The sound emitted from the skull-shaped instrument has been compared to the tormented screams of the dying and the dead. Its shrill cry is said to clear a path to the underworld for the recently deceased. The death whistle has also been used as an instrument of war, its cry striking fear into the heart of the unknowing enemy. The Aztec used these to burn incense so they could communicate with the gods. Still smells of copal. Patoli is said to be one of the oldest games in America, played by all walks of life. Players were known to gamble all of their worldly possessions over a single round, from blankets and precious stones to their homes and even their family's freedom. The god of art and games, Makwilshoktol, is considered an active participant in the game, responsible with bestowing offerings upon the winner. So much on the line for a simple game. Some things never do change. These ear ornaments are in pristine condition. They contain a carved-out illustration of a winged beast with a pronounced trunk and a torch or staff in its hand. This type of jewelry is a symbol of wealth and prosperity, maybe even belonging to royalty. This polished piece of silver is lined with gold and inlaid with turquoise gems. It appears to be a decorative mirror of sorts. An ornate filigree depicting Ixchel is carved onto its backside. Mesoamerican people used this stone as a tool for processing grain and seeds. Traditionally woven from fabric and stuffed with reeds and grains, the burial dolls are frequently shown holding something in their hand like a musical instrument or a ball of yarn. In this instance, the doll is holding a toddler, perhaps signifying that the deceased was a mother. But this one is made from modern materials. I suppose Paul Veneer could have made it as a promotional toy. Miss Ortiz, your dedication and commitment to the village of Coaquiacu is commendable. However, Porvenir does not accept your charges of responsibility for the terrible state of the village. In fact, the Board of Executives has decided, and your local government representative agrees, if you continue this crusade of slandering our good name, we will have no choice but to take legal action. From the office of Roberto Lavia, Chief Executive Officer, Porvenir. This is a promotional model of an oil derrick made out of cheap plastic and copper. There is a logo for a company called Porvenir on the base of it. This knife is a cheap plastic replica of those traditionally used to sacrifice llamas in the Inti Raymi or Sun God Festival. It was also occasionally used to perform trepanning surgery. The Inca believed that cutting a hole in the skull could relieve pressure to cure some diseases. Miss Ortiz, thank you for your recent inquiry. A water quality index, WQI, was calculated for river sites surrounding the village of Kuwakyaku from the samples you provided, and results have shown that the river sites should be classified as bad water quality. The results of this study have shown large-scale impacts that include siltation, chemical pollution, and heavy metal pollution. Turbidity and total solids exceeded the environmental limits. Water of high turbidity, hazy, murky water, cannot be used as potable water, and the high total solids also imply that it cannot be used as irrigation water as well, as this will damage infrastructure. It is most likely that any subsistence fishing that took place before is no longer possible at the affected river sites, thereby impacting negatively on people's livelihoods. Similarly, pH was in the high alkaline range as well as COD. These parameters were indicative of some chemical pollution in the river. The pH, that is alkaline, hard water, is corrosive and can damage plumbing equipment and clothes. High levels of fluoride in the water poses the risk of diseases such as dental and skeletal fluorosis. The presence of pathogenic bacteria such as Salmonella also represents an immediate health risk for the local community. This cast iron conical mold was mainly used throughout the 60s and 70s to shape small gold ingots. Its unique shape causes the gold to settle at the bottom, separating it from impurities. The ruling family is displaced, reduced to nothing but a figurehead while we truly control the city. The reason for allowing them to remain in position of seeming power is twofold. It allows us to focus on our search for the silver box, and it acts as a pacifier for the locals who are recalcitrant to any type of change. The cult of Kukulkan has gone too far. The time to strike is now. They push, and all we do is take another step back. If Unuratu is unwilling to do anything, then we should move forward without her. Inti is the Incan sun god, created by the great god Viracocha. Incan rulers consider themselves direct descendants of Inti, as he is the patron of empire and military conquest. Kukulkan departs Paititi during new moon. Kukulkan returns, with several other outsiders, during the waxing of the moon. They argue. The next morning, the entire group, now in better spirits, leaves in their obsidian birds. When the crimson fire smokes, seek your mirror. Bit enigmatic that. I wonder what it's supposed to mean. Etzli gave me half of Unuratu's eclipse amulet. I get the moon, and he kept the sun. I suppose this means he expects to remove the darkness over Paititi. Tall order. I hope I don't let them down. Wife of Inti, daughter of Viracocha and mother of the founders of the Incan Empire. Likely another artifact extorted from the people of Paititi by the cult. The remains of the peasant savior have been moved to an undisclosed location. We've had reports of the cult stealing objects and artifacts and holding them hostage in exchange for docility. We will not allow such a sacrilege to happen to Manco. A 6-point mace, cast from copper, with an embedded axe blade, a fearsome weapon. The carving on this bowl depicts a procession of Maya carrying something of great importance to them. The silver square. What could that mean? This mural depicts some kind of voyage or pilgrimage undertaken by the Maya. Seems they carried an item of great import and traveled south to the source of the pink fish. The Amazon River, just like Jonah said. The pre-Columbian ceramic jar seems to be depicting two gods in conversation. I can't quite make out the glyphs between them. Oh, smells vaguely fungi. The world around them began to crumble. The people decided to move. The artifact entrusted to them urged them to travel south, lest it be seized by their enemies. From life to death, full moon to new, this temple serves as guardian to the silver box. From death to life, new moon to full, this temple serves as guardian to the silver box. Those worthy shall be sacrificed to the red goddess, she of the waning moon and she of the waxing moon, grandmother to all, life-taker and birth-giver. Yaskar Yahweh united the two sides, ending the war. However, their blood still boiled. In order to placate the soldiers, someone must be punished. Yahweh rounded up the merchants believed to be responsible for the conflict and sacrificed them. This jade mask would have been placed on a noble's corpse during his funeral. The artisans were reputedly able to create an almost exact likeness of the wearer. The peak of this mountain is hidden behind thick clouds. I can't be sure what these two smaller hills on either side of the mountain are supposed to represent. An adhesive made of tree sap and powdered bone hold the jade and other gems in place within the wearer's teeth. A crude drill, perhaps made of obsidian, would have been used to delicately carve out the notches required to hold the jewelry in place. A secondary party, a few days behind the main pilgrimage, reported strange things on the route. The beasts had become more ferocious, and the jungle itself more dangerous. The trees and vines gnarled and twisted, growing thorns as long as a man's finger and sharp as blades. This shows a basic sketch for a temple, rising from the middle of a city. If I squint, it sort of looks like a snake. It's difficult to make out. People settled between two rivers. They weren't alone. However, these outsiders don't appear dangerous. The elders of the village have lied to us. There is no beast underground. The howling we hear is only the wind rushing out through small caves leading to the surface. They've used fear to control us for too long. Once I make my way out of this infernal sweat bath, I will throw their lies at their feet. And in the moment the gods were satisfied Metnal did not kill his wife, a pelican landed at the accused's feet. This stunned those in attendance. This was a seabird, hardly ever seen this far inland. The representatives of the gods decided to see what the bird meant to do. It circled Metnal, flapping its wings and squawking softly, and then it opened its mouth and a half-eaten fish landed at Metnal's feet. This was understood by all as a sign of Metnal's guilt, and he was quickly executed. The lone figure appears in a state of peace, as though waiting for something. The protectors failed, and are now doomed to recover what they lost. Rumors have long persisted of monsters, for lack of a better term, in the area surrounding the mission of St. John. The locals refuse to discuss these sightings. They grow sullen when they are mentioned and usually scurry off and hide in their homes. However, it is my fervent belief, once we have converted the populace, they will see these monsters as nothing but superstitions, shadows that disappear in the Lord's light. Another example of syncretic belief. This figure portrayed on the cross is not Jesus Christ, but Kukulkan. I suppose a parallel could be drawn between the two. This roughly drawn sketch shows St. John repelling a demon attack. Perhaps they planned to have this as one of the frescoes in the mission. Villager claims to have seen a strange creature in the streets. They followed it to a walled-in alley where it disappeared. Citizen described similar experience in Upper City. Woke to discover something trying to climb in a second-story window. When she yelled, it dropped to the street and disappeared. We'll continue to monitor. How can these shapes be Incan when they look like airplanes? Oh, I see, they're insects of some sort. Archaeology is a very delicate field of study. You have to put yourself in the mindset of people and cultures who died centuries before you were even born. Humans interpret strange phenomena based on what they already know. If the Inca had seen planes, they might have assumed they were some sort of bird. Given that, these shapes may not be insects after all. Some of them look more like fish. This is the flight log from our plane. Miguel made notes about the long-term weather forecast. Warm, hot and dry for the next 3 days. Highs in the low 30s, mostly clear skies with nothing but light rain expected. Based on his other entries, if Miguel had thought the chances of a severe storm were better than half, he wouldn't have flown us at all. But there was no storm predicted, let alone something serious. This is the story of local caverns rumored to be haunted. Ghostly noises coming from deep within the bowels of the earth. No one who's entered the caves has ever returned. Mysterious sounds, something between the booming of thunder and the howling of dogs, and a mysterious light glowing within. Oh my god, this is a penguin lawn ornament, painted and decorated and placed in a location of reverence. I shouldn't laugh, but it's so incongruous. The locals wouldn't be able to identify the animal it's intended to represent, and they certainly wouldn't be familiar with the material the statue is made from. There isn't any plastic in Paititi. I'd love to talk to whoever did this and learn why, what they think this penguin is. Every part of the world seems to have its own mythical, forest-dwelling bipedal creature. Around here it's known as the Sisamite, the guardian of the forest. Described as large and ape-like, it's rumored to kill male humans on sight, but takes the females to its cave for mating purposes. The Paititians who wrote this believed that something called the Yashil lived beneath Paititi. According to this record, these beings are strongest during astrological events, which is consistent with the legends, but they also attack and feed on humans, but that's not the behavior that usually appears in the stories. From this description, what they call the Yashil is the same type of creature I encountered in Kawakyaku. The Nowl is nothing more than a jaguar bound in this terrible armor. More of Dominguez's smoke and mirrors. He's leveraged a myth to make the people of Paititi fear the wilderness, to keep them here, to control them. You can see the claw marks where the jaguar tried to remove the mask. Poor thing. This skull is deformed, flatter and longer than what we consider normal. Some people believe this is evidence the Inca were contacted by extraterrestrials, but it's more likely the result of head binding, a human practice of deformation so ancient it predates written history. It also has evidence of trepanation, a medical procedure in which a hole is carved in the skull. The pilgrimage came to a fork of 2 rivers and decided to settle. They erected 2 pyramids and began their new lives as protectors of the box. During a fierce battle, a man of 2 bloods throws down his weapons and, speaking with passions, convinces the other warriors to do the same. They follow him from the battlefield into the city, where they behead several merchants whose initial bickering caused the war. Ill-suited to the local land, the Maya's agriculture techniques of slash and burn soon led to a food shortage. At the risk of starvation, they entered into treaties with local pre-Inca tribes, gaining new technologies and crops. The traders arrived, bringing new goods, and then the farmers, with new crops and techniques. Eventually, as more and more of the outsiders arrived in Paititi, they eventually took administrative control. The Paititians made peace with each other and followed Yaskar Yahweh, recently acclaimed as emperor, to a site in the mountains to begin anew, certain they will not make the same mistakes as those before them. The surging population and lack of civil planning caused the settlement many problems. Farmers clear-cut jungle to use the fertile riverbanks for their crops, resulting in a devastating flood in the first heavy rains. Overhunting forced hunters to travel ever further to find game. Several groups, each vying for a controlling interest in the settlement, debated often fiercely on the best manner of solving these problems. Paititi flourishes under the watchful gaze of Yaskar Yahweh and his council. The city grows, temples are built, the people are peaceful, prosperous, and content. Maya and Inca stood shoulder to shoulder against their brothers on one side, those who wished to retreat and start fresh, and those who wished to expand and conquer neighboring territories. Having not heard from Lopez, some among the leadership began to have their doubts about him. Our group dispatched south to investigate. We sent the natives in first, uncertain those in the city had not killed Lopez on his arrival. They returned with reports of how sick the city was, and we quickly formed a plan to utilize this to our advantage. We leave the city at first light, which is just as well, for a terrible disease has spread across it. Dead and dying line the paths and choke the streams. Many are saying it is punishment from the gods. Journal of Adelantado Perez. Dressed in native garb, we entered the city. Those healthy enough to resist our advance met us with spears. We bowed and told them Kukulkan had sent us to cleanse the city of sickness. We administered balms and medicine to the city's leaders and those we thought worth saving, buried the dead, and comforted the dying. Slowly the people came to trust and soon rely on our aid. The shadows loom long and dark, the mountain black as night, in mourning as the strange pale men end the short but immensely productive life of Kaiua Kapak. He whose yearning for greatness lashed this city to his shoulders and carried it upwards, who only ever asked for Enti to warm his brow as he worked, in the streams or fields or brickyards. Kaiua Kapak made a deal with the strange men. He gave his life so that we may live ours, free, but under the new rule of these men from distant lands. Pure silver. From what I understand, Manco was a simple farmer. This must have been made posthumously as an offering to honor him. This shows a pilgrimage from a great city. This must be Manco, leading the priestess's ancestors out of Cusco. We found their hidden city easily enough, the coordinates from Trinity being correct. The natives did not trust us, and we entered the city with spears at our necks. There was a tumult against the people. We later learned a cohort of Inca had arrived a month before. Lopez spun a tale of our desertion from the Spanish army, for our hearts could not fathom the destruction they had and would continue to cause, and we gladly exchange any or all of our goods for shelter, if only for a short while. Reluctantly, they allowed us to remain in the city, on the condition we leave our armor and weapons in a small hut outside of the city proper. The men hesitated, and finally we agreed that 2 of us would remain outside, guarding the gear. The threat of the disease held at bay, we soon learned that Lopez had come and gone. Some of us began to suspect his betrayal, while others worried for his safety. The only course of action was to remain in the city, The reasoning twofold. We'd be ready when Lopez came to his senses and returned the artifact, or this would be the easiest point from which to mount a search for him. We struck an accord with the king. We would become his royal guard, physicians, and priests. The new methods of agriculture introduced by the cult of Kukulkan have only succeeded in destroying more crops. First, the bee colonies collapsed. Then the cocoa crop failed. The earth is too damaged for anything but corn to grow, and the stalks are flimsy. We must take action, or Paititi will suffer a tremendous famine. This seems to represent Unuratu leading a group in rebellion. There is a near-total eclipse in the background. Unuratu approached the throne through the crowd. She walked beside it, but did not sit. "Why do we continue to believe this lie?" she asked the crowd. "Kukulkan controls this city, and I will no longer wear a smile and pretend it is any different. I will not be his puppet, trotted out to wave and smile." The guards cut her off quickly and ushered her away. Then they advanced, with weapons drawn to disperse the crowds. Amaru returned for his brother's funeral, inconsolable during the burial and immovable after. The next day, however, he cut swiftly through the city. He unmasked the cult's leader, exposing them as outsiders. "It is time for the people of Paititi to take control of their city," he said, holding a decapitated head in one hand and the bloody knife in the other. "No longer will we bow to outsiders." Born to famine, raised in rebellion, orphaned but never alone, he rises as the sun. Another group of children is on their way from Khan, traveling via steamship. Of the 10 I have sent, please keep a close eye on the one called Amaru. He shows the greatest promise. However, he is prone to bouts of sullenness and often complains about missing his brother. I suggest a special curriculum be created for this one, something that will keep him too occupied to be homesick. This Spanish document relates one of the many stories of El Dorado, the Golden One. When the first Spanish exploration ships returned home with their holds full of gold, the news spread like wildfire, and the stories got more extravagant with each retelling. Rumors of the Golden City gave birth to countless expeditions to the New World. This camera belongs to the X700 line. Sam had one of those. I was so jealous. It's just the thing you'd want for an expedition to find a lost monument or civilization. This is proof that there were people coming here as recently as the 1980s. Even when modernity scoffs at them, some legends still manage to inspire people. The lens is cracked. Almost looks as though it was hit by a projectile of some type. Had to put the last remaining mule down yesterday. Broke its leg. Shame. Terrible shame. But I think I found it. Came across an abandoned village that simply must be Z. If only father was still alive. I'm resting here for the night. Tomorrow I'll begin a thorough investigation of the site. The world will know a Fawcett discovered the lost city. This was written by an explorer in the mid-20th century who is looking for a lost city. He discovered a small trading post near the base camp, run by a woman named Kwama. He asked her if she knew any old stories which might help them find the lost city. By the time he wrote this, the explorer was near death and convinced she'd misled their expedition deliberately. Any squad venturing outside Khan must take special precautions in covering their tracks. We're close now, and the last thing we need is droves of tourists showing up trying to be the first to get the perfect selfies in the city. Follow the Napo to the Amazon. Nothing but jungle for weeks. Phillips got the fever and I had to drag the bastard through this forsaken jungle for the last few days. He kept me awake every night, screaming something about being covered in snakes. Just when we were about to succumb to exhaustion, We arrived at a small settlement built at the foot of an ancient temple. The locals fed us and nursed Phillips until his fever broke. After asking around, I found out there's another temple close by, twin to the first. Once Phillips regains his strength, we'll explore these temples. This journey will not have been for naught after all. That starched shirt Fawcett may be getting all the attention, but I know his time is almost up. The world will remember the Timothy Walker as the man who finally found the lost city of El Dorado. We've set up camp in a canyon. It was a grueling journey to get this far. We'll rest here a few days, get our bearings. Some of the men need patching up, and I wouldn't mind one good night's sleep. The men say something came through the camp last night. The jungle is getting to them. I keep telling them that we're close and we need to keep it together. One of the scouts has found a temple of some kind up ahead. We'll start construction of bridges and ladders this morning and head out from camp this afternoon. Damn this place. Damn this forsaken jungle. It holds a jewel just out of reach and then sweeps your legs out from under you. We've almost made it across that bottomless pit. Some kind of altar beckons from the other side, under a giant stone face that seems to mock our efforts. Something attacked the camp. Some men claimed it was panthers. Others said something more sinister. Half the crew insist on abandoning the expedition. I had to dress one man down, made an example of him. All I need is one more day. One more lousy day. This staff has a jury-rigged flintlock mechanism similar to those from European firearms. The cultist priests must have used this during their ceremonies to awe the crowds. In an effort to reduce the possibility of disease entering Paititi, Emperor Shika hereby temporarily bans all citizens from exiting the city. Anyone currently beyond the city's limits will not be authorized to re-enter. Paititi is still recovering from a recent epidemic, and any other outbreaks could tip the already precarious balance. By order of the cult of Kukulkan. Someone's taken this old walkie-talkie apart. Were they making an attempt at reverse engineering, I wonder? The city's priests, or shamans, if we mean to differentiate between the heathens and those who toil in the Lord's light, were the first to come forward, the first to listen, to hear of the state of the outside world. And thereupon, several of them felt completely cheated and begged to be baptized. They reasoned rightly their worship and trust was misplaced in the traditional deities of these lands. For as one stated, if your God has brought you here, across the world, then he truly must be the most powerful, and only a fool would not bow to such a being. We will teach these shamans English, and have them teach the population of Paititi. In order to not upset an already delicately balanced situation, all members of Trinity will adhere to the following rules. Limit excursions in the city. If leaving the compound is unavoidable, always wear the cultist uniform. Do not carry modern weapons. Avoid direct contact with Paititians when possible. Turn mirror 1 to the left. Follow the beam of light to mirror 2. Direct mirror 2 across the chamber diagonally. Return to mirror 1. These seem to be instructions of some kind, but I can't make out the rest. This figure must be the Owl, the mythological beast stalking the outskirts of Paititi. Now this is a fascinating concept. The Miracle Club. Come meet people that share your beliefs, devotion, and taste for adventure. Create lifelong memories as you travel the world together. It's a Christian singles group dedicated to visiting pilgrimage sites. This document describes the founding of the mission. There were 4 solar eclipses in this region around that time, in 1521, 1538, 1539, and 1543. Spanish missionaries reported that during each one, a vision of John the Apostle appeared on this site, so in his honor, the mission of St. John was built here in 1544. This is an official document issued recently by the Holy See. In consideration of this mission having been badly damaged by an unusually violent and entirely unexpected volcanic tremor, they sent requests to every Spanish-speaking diocese, asking them to consider sending missionaries to restore and rebuild this holy site. This document outlines the goals and works of the mission of St. John. In addition to their individual spiritual goals and their outreach programs, the people here are clearly passionate about contributing to the nearby communities. Education, literacy, healthcare, even donating a portion of the food they raise. This Spanish document is fascinating. It tells the story of several natural disasters which struck this area. A flood, a fire caused by lightning, and a severe volcanic tremor. In each instance, buildings on this site were badly damaged, requiring considerable rebuilding. John, son of Zebedee, one of Jesus' apostles, also called the beloved disciple. He and his brother James were known for their impetuousness and temper, which prompted Christ to start calling them Boanerges, sons of thunder. John is credited with writing 5 books of the New Testament, the Gospel of John, the 3 epistles of John, and the Book of Revelation. He's the patron saint of love and loyalty, as well as writers, publishers, and scholars. One of his symbols is a serpent in a cup, which is linked to his patronage of victims of poisoning and burns. Strange there are only 7 stations. This must be based on an older tradition. Jesus takes up the cross, falls the first time, meets his mother, then Veronica wipes his face before he falls the second time. Then he is crucified, and finally entombed. St. John was the last of Jesus' apostles to die, and the only one whose life didn't end in martyrdom or suicide. As a writer of 5 books of the New Testament, he's the patron saint of theologians and scholars. Because of his long life, he was able to take on several students who continued his teachings after he died, establishing a line of religious study that remains unbroken to this day. Dominguez forbade us from mingling with the locals, didn't want us corrupting them. Luckily, one of the priests developed a taste for bourbon, and as long as I brought a pint with me, he'd lend me his costume, mask and all. Walking through the lower city was like traveling 500 years into the past. This obsidian-tipped arrow was snapped in half. It looks similar to those used by Unuratu's rebels. If they went up against Trinity with these primitive weapons, they never had a chance. Do not leave the city. Those who leave become cursed, forced to wander the jungle, and never find peace. Location found. Hidden. Terrain difficult to traverse. Seems safe from the stranger's intent on forcing us into slavery. This wooden firearm is almost an exact replica of a modern assault rifle. The artisan who made this must have had an excellent memory, or worked from a model. Perhaps a weapon stolen from Trinity. This hard hat is decorated with peacock feathers and what seems to be the likeness of a jaguar. I've left and come back and no demons haunt me. Was I just lucky, or has the cult lied to us? What do they have to gain from keeping us here? When the Lord gave his covenant to Noah, saying never again will he destroy this world, it can be interpreted as he has decided humanity has learned their lesson. But have we? There is also a different interpretation to be made, and that is that he has given the agency of destruction to mankind itself. We are responsible for every living soul, and they are now tarnished and besought. It has been 4,000 years since the world saw purity, and we aim to end that. We will be the architects of the new world. We will pave the street to heaven for all. We will usher an end to this sinful, reprehensible world. Attention, Dr. Dominguez. Camp set up near abandoned oil factory outside of village. Survey of area ongoing. Contact made with villagers. None with any information on lone wolf. Small group splintered off from main camp. Stole 2 weeks' worth of supplies. Suggest eradication of former assets once operation complete. No sign of Croft yet. Reports of a plane crash 10 clicks outside of village. Maybe we got lucky. NB. Villager suggested making sure Abby Ortiz does not become too interested in our activities. Name sent to headquarters. Dossier incoming shortly. Currently researching avenues and contingency plans. Trinity can rot in this jungle. And as for the Pytetian Emperor, not even he can truly understand just what this box is. But I do, and I know it should not be used by just anyone. That would be catastrophic. Only the purest among us should make the decision as to how to wield the power of the silver box. That is why I must hide it. Stone faces weep as Jesus creeps along the dolorous path. Too many died. More will still, and more will still, and more will still. His light leads the way. They have several sites all over South America. Wish I'd found this map sooner. I could have gone directly to Paititi. After action report. Attention, Dr. Dominguez. Search site, Mazaruni River, Guyana. 5.816587-59.468158. Discovered evidence of Maya migration. Upon subsequent investigation, site deemed a dead end. Actions taken. Site flooded by redirecting river. Locals recruited for labor eliminated. All trace of presence scrubbed. Other. Kick up at nearby village. Lethal response necessary. Area isolated. Site flooded. Appears natural. South American rivers rising due to climate change story seeded in media. Search team report and findings. Central and South American Division. Attention, Dr. Dominguez. Mexico. Cozumel, Temple of Shakshel discovered. Site closed and scrubbed. Brazil. Atishi Matari region. Dead end. Site closed and scrubbed. Team moved to Trincheira Bacaja site. Mandaruku region. Search inconclusive. Trouble with government. Suggest closing site. Awaiting orders. Trincheira Bacaja region. Progress made with local tribes. Investigation ongoing. Peru. Coaquiacu. Temple discovered. Research ongoing. Attention, Dr. Dominguez. Possible entry point located for temple outside of Coaquiacu. Excavation equipment en route. The younger Croft is more active and less cerebral than her father was. Although intelligent, she is less focused on the meaning and history of the artifacts she seeks and more prone to risk-taking. With no children or family of her own, she is free to pursue her targets, almost to the point of obsession. Although this can make her appear impulsive or unpredictable at times, we believe her drive and the balance of her personality will make her easier to influence, with the promise of greater challenge and more likely to deliver results. Any information she might have that Richard Croft withheld from Trinity would simply be a bonus. We recommend her as a strong target for recruiting. This is a record of a mercenary's assignments while working for Trinity. Mexico, Kenya, Siberia. I had my crosshairs on the younger one too, but Rourke had orders for us to leave her alone. This is the bastard who shot Anna. May 23rd. Over a month has passed since our expedition departed from Cuiaba. We have consumed our provisions methodically thus far, and continue to be in high spirits. Father's age shows when we're on foot. A few times now I have caught Raleigh looking over his shoulder and back at us to make sure we're still keeping up. Father always returns a look with a smile and saying he'll soon be the one in the lead. 30th of May. This morning we entered uncharted territory, leaving the sun-bleached bones of dead horse camp behind. It seems the tables have turned on Raleigh, almost quite literally. His bandaged leg has slowed his pace and made him the tail of our party. When Father notices, he slows, turning around to give us both an encouraging smile. His overly eager step betrays his calm demeanor as he rushes past us at the sight of every nearing turn, ridge, or embankment. 6th of June. Father's outward enthusiasm is at an all-time high, though I have doubts. In the middle of the night, I have caught the whites of his eyes reflecting moonlight, his stare vacantly locked to the stars. Were it not for all the stories he has shared of the Amazon in the past, I would mistake his gaze as regretful, even mournful. Perhaps it is simply these insects making their way through our head nets causing him such consternation. 18th of July. I awoke this morning at the sight of my father wringing his handkerchief tightly between his two hands. Wide-eyed and unblinking, he stared in Raleigh's direction. Raleigh had passed. Infection had set into his wounds days ago, and shortly after, fever took hold. Between fits of cold sweats, labored groans of pain, and demented ramblings, Raleigh had somehow been able to insist on forging ahead. Father had tried to reason with him, telling him to turn back, to let us carry the torch, but Raleigh made it clear. Turning our backs on him would have been leaving him there to die. We forged ahead. We were as far away from civilization as we had ever been, and we foolishly continued to trudge forward. So long, old friend. 1st of August. Tonight, sleep escapes us. The jungle is angry and the moon is uncooperative. The human imagination wanders endlessly in the dark this deep. I can hear the jungle's breath ruffling behind my ears, its low growl shaking the very ground we lay on, its manic energy rustling through the trees above. Rest has become the lead on our search, finding us at the most inopportune time. I have caught Father dozing off mid-step and his hand barely clutching his walking stick. We run out of food and are sustained almost entirely by gathered berries and rainwater. The both of us are far too unyielding to give up. I fear the very stubbornness that led us to this point may also be that which leads us to our early graves. This seems to be some kind of primitive sculpture of a human. This seems to be some kind of primitive sculpture of a human. This seems to be some kind of primitive sculpture of a human. This seems to be some kind of primitive sculpture of a human. This seems to be some kind of primitive sculpture of a human. These two gods are the rulers of the Maya underworld, Xibalba, literally the place of fright. Vucub-Kakwish, whose name means seven macaw, was a monstrous bird who was said to carry the false sun in his beak. His subordinate was Hunkame, which means one death. They are both defeated and killed by the hero twins after challenging them to various sports and games in which both sides cheated. Vucub-Kakwish lost his game of darts when the hero twins used blowpipes. The Maya goddess Ishel, like moon goddesses in many other cultures, was also a mother deity associated with pregnancy and childbirth. The natural phenomena over which she presided included waterfalls, rainstorms, and rainbows. She was also the goddess of all crafts, such as watercolor painting and weaving, which she invented. But she wasn't exclusively nurturing. Her hair consisted of living serpents. She wore a skirt made of bones, and she had a legendary temper. Shak was a very important god to the Maya. He taught them farming secrets and oversaw growing and the harvest. Generally, he was associated with all forms of fertility. He was also in charge of wind, lightning, and rain, which was caused by his tears. He was in charge of preserving springs, wells, streams, cenotes, and other sources of water. Like the aspects over which he presided, he was considered benevolent and caring, but unpredictable. Physically, Shak was depicted as a reptile with hair tangled in unruly knots, and his colors were white, red, yellow, and black, representing north, east, south, and west. A depiction of Apuk, god of death and ruler of Mitnel, the ninth and most horrible level of the Maya version of hell. One thing Apuk enjoyed doing was dressing in putrefying flesh and visiting the surface to prey upon the living. According to legend, the only way to save yourself from him was to scream and yell like you were in unbearable agony. He'd assume you were already being tortured by one of his minions and leave you alone. How appropriate that his harbinger demon was a screech owl named Muon. Itzamna is the son of the Maya creator god Hunabku. He was the god of education, responsible for inventing writing and books. This made him an essential figure in the development of Maya culture. He was also god of agriculture and created farming. He even presided over doctors, healing people with the help of his red-hot hand. Usually Itzamna took on a reptilian aspect, but he was also known as Kinichahau, a fire Makor, who was the patron of the number 4 and controlled drought and disease. This Maya god is very dark brown, almost black, with black-rimmed eyes and facial features that seem to be melting at their extremities. This can only be Exua. He's the patron god of the cacao bean, which accounts for his coloring. Also, because ancient Mesoamericans used those beans as currency, Exua became by extension a god of merchants and of trade. Interestingly, when he first appeared in the lore, he was a god of conflict. Suicide was not considered forbidden by the Maya. In fact, it was considered an honorable alternative to living. Because of this, by committing suicide, you could bypass the underworld and go straight to paradise, where other noble deaths included the sacrificed, those who died in battle or childbirth, and those who died playing ball. The suicide's escort on the journey to paradise would be this goddess, Ishtab, also called Rope Woman. She was the goddess of suicides, especially those who hanged themselves and manifested as a rotting corpse hanging from a noose. The collection of reeds bundled together with rope and stone is used as a calendar, usually representing a 52-year cycle. This is a formidable weapon, heavy wood lined with sharp obsidian teeth. It could easily stop an unarmored enemy, and if the bloodstains are any indication, it has. This garishly decorated fire drill appears to be a part of the new fire ceremony, an Aztec celebration of the new year. It consists of 5 days of fasting, bloodletting, and sacrifice. The fire drill is meant to be placed upon the chest of the freshly sacrificed. It sparks, feeding a large bonfire that ignites the flames of every nearby temple. This one, however, doesn't appear to have been used, as the notches are clear of blood. An Aztec-influenced mask, decorated with items native to the area around Paititi. This elaborate pipe is sculpted to resemble Xicoatl, an Aztec serpent spirit painted in green, blue, and yellow. Its sides are decorated with semi-precious stones. The inclusion of jade indicates at least a measure of Maya influence. The bowl still reeks of burnt roots and smoke, not an entirely unpleasant aroma. This pendant is decorated in the Incan tradition, but the effigy clearly appears to be an Aztec warrior. That shouldn't be possible. This could be an effigy of the peasant savior. It might have been stolen by the cult of Kukulkan to keep the Paititians from worshipping it. Or maybe it was given to them as payment for protection. As ordered, we have made our way to Khan in search of the suspected traitor Andreas Lopez, accompanied by a squadron of native warriors. We'd found them along the shores of the Gulf after they had recently escaped a slave ship that was caught in a storm. The initial encounter was tense, but soon we came to an accord. The warriors agreed to accompany us through the jungle, on the condition we made a detour to several other outposts to enlist more of their people and that we would keep them from being enslaved. We found that altogether satisfactory and soon set off. Alfonso Ricci, Order of Trinity. Murder, death, stealing another's crops, death, stealing another's skins, death, idleness, head shaved, fighting, restitution to injured party, public drunkenness, stoning, exceptions, during a festival or over 70 years old, by order of the cult of Kukulkan. Kukulkan says they won't fear us if we are not capable warriors, and to become capable we must complete the tests their people have made. These Paititians know nothing of war. Their blades and spear tips have dulled. I will complete their rituals, and I will show them the true might of those who follow Kukulkan. Kukulkan bid me to join the ranks of the priesthood. The pantheon of Paititians is a patchwork of several cultures. I'll need to study their rituals, their beliefs, and learn how we can use their own gods against them. The ones from across the water are devious and intelligent. I do not doubt the city will soon be united under the control of Kukulkan. When I first laid eyes on Angel de la Cruz, I knew I met a man of worth. When he spoke, my heart shook. Its tremors vibrated for days after his first sermon. That evening, God himself told me to set out to prove I was the chosen one. I left the next morning, seeking to prove my worth. In preparation for the ultimate test, I have begun to explore the crypts and tombs found near the mission. They are challenging and dangerous, and I am slowly improving. My reflexes are quicker. I'm getting stronger, and I dare say my eyesight in the dark is improving. I know there are others trying to prove their worth to Brother de la Cruz, but they will not best me. Didn't think these places would be trapped. Caught a spear through the abdomen. Hurts to breathe. Pray for me. I have returned from my training, however Brother de la Cruz has disappeared. The sisters of the mission have no idea where he went. No matter. I will wait for him to return. My heart is pure. My head is clear. I am ready for the trials, and I will prove to him I am the chosen one. I was not worthy. Forgive me for my hubris. I know now that I am not the chosen one. Now I fear I have endangered the lives of Brother de la Cruz and the sisters of the mission. They do not know that the hollow earth surrounding the mission is home to demons, cruel, hissing creatures with twisted claws and sick, yellowed eyes. I came to this place to purge them from the world, in the name of Angel de la Cruz, to win his favor and earn my seat at his side. But I have failed. I could not contain this evil, and now it is out, and all warning of it will die down here with me. I am Chirilo Serrano, and these are likely the last words I write. Andreas Lopez, or Angel de la Cruz as he has called himself these last years, has finally and fully gone insane. His demands have grown, becoming more grueling and grotesque as we labor to build his crypt. The construction is almost complete. I know I will die when it is done, Lopez in a brief moment of clarity told me himself. Damn that box. Damn what it has done to the man I once, and sadly still, admire. An Alux, plural Alashab, is akin to the Maya version of a gnome or leprechaun. They're about as high as an adult's knee and wear traditional Maya clothing. They are created whenever a farmer builds a little house on his property for them, after which they'll help the corn grow for a period of 7 years, making it rain and chasing off predators. They're usually invisible, and in spite of their benefit to the land, they like to play tricks on or frighten humans. Don't call one by name, or you'll summon it from its home, and it won't be happy with you. Balam is the Maya word for jaguar. The Maya idolized jaguars for their majestic beauty and dangerous grace. Villagers would have 4 akantuns, idols which they placed at each corner of the village. At night, 5 Balams, spirit jaguar guardians, would come to the village. 1 Balam would station itself at each corner, next to an akantun, while the 5th and smallest Balam would coordinate their protection efforts against evil demons and spirits. Hunbats and Hunchoan were twin brothers, older half-siblings of the more celebrated Maya hero twins. Jealous of their brothers, the monkey twins would always cheat during football matches and ruin them with their aggressive tactics. In retaliation, the hero twins lured them up a tree which never stopped growing, preventing Hunbats and Hunchoan from getting down. The hero twins convinced them that they could use their belts to climb down, but this turned out to be another trick, and the belts became tails, turning the elder twins into monkeys. The divine canoe, which carries Maya souls through the underworld and into the sky, is directed by 2 gods. Old Stingray Paddler sits in the back of the canoe and handles the duties during the day, while Old Jaguar Paddler sits in the front and takes care of the night shift. These 2 gods symbolize not only light and darkness, day and night, but also the interdependence of all equal and opposite forces. These are 2 legendary trees which complement one another. The Chechen tree secretes a substance which is poisonous upon contact, and the nectar of the Chaka tree can neutralize that poison before it results in serious burns. The fascinating thing about these trees is that they always grow very near to each other. According to legend, 2 brothers, warrior princes, fought a battle to the death over the love of a woman and died in each other's arms. They begged the gods for forgiveness, and it was granted. Kinich, the kind one, was reborn as a benevolent Chaka tree, while Tazik, the hate-filled one, was reborn as the poisonous Chechen tree. Votan is an ancient Maya god of war and death. So old he is rumored to have been old even before the beginning of time itself. He is usually depicted as having no teeth and being colored entirely black. Little is known about him, except that he likes to smoke pungent cigars. Interestingly, he is also the god who invented drumming. The Maya Tree of Life, also known as Yashe, plants its roots in the underworld and then passes through our world as its branches extend all the way into paradise. Lurking somewhere inside the world tree is Itsamye, a bird god who is said to know all the secrets of the 3 planes of existence through which the world tree grows. Those charged with crimes are brought here, and they battle under the watchful gaze of the gods, the only infallible judges. Those proven innocent may leave, but the guilty are killed and thrown to Shabalba. When storms crash and rivers swell, direct the waters to quench the thirst of the gods who toil above and below. Here, under the watchful eye of one of the lords of death, lies the gate to Shabalba, where all must travel when transitioning from this life to the next. A city is only as strong as its crops and people. From here we control the water, never having to rely on the Fikli rains again. Only the worthy may call upon Kinichahal. Use his light to chase the shadows from your hearts and the city itself. From its roots in the underworld, sheltering bats, it grows straight and true. Its trunk holds the realm of men fast, and its branches spread its white leaves across the night sky. Come, those who imagine themselves brave and bold, See if you can survive the trials awaiting within. Those who do will have earned their status as warriors. When the caverns begin to howl, a warrior must descend to ease the torment. If one cannot be sacrificed, then all will die. May Ergu be the one to chart the path from this life to the next, so that we may all travel safely. May Remax be the first voice we hear in the afterlife, and may her stories comfort us. May Waiter's desire for power be sated by the time we follow him to the afterlife. May Chuki have woven us each a tunic of the finest wool by the time we reach the afterlife. May Quispe have acquired a surplus of foods, supplies, and comforts by the time we meet him in the afterlife. May Olanta find the clays and metals of the afterlife suitable to her craft. May the rivers of the afterlife be calm, and Utaranku's boat sturdy to ferry us across them. May Huascar's knowledge of the two afterlives be sufficient to guide us, if we arrive in either. Abby's grandmother wanted her to have this, but why? Pilar didn't seem to know. It has to have something to do with the riddle she wrote on the back. I have hidden the truth, as Abigail will find, but to uncover it, she must take a trip back in time. Abby's grandmother Mariana used lemon juice as invisible ink to hide 3 small X's, like a classic treasure map. There. I thought it was a small blemish when I first looked at it, but in this light it looks like a Maya hieroglyph. It means truth. There's a 3-stepped edge on one side that looks to have been carved by hand. Hand carved on one side. I thought the pieces looked familiar. It's not until I put them all together that I can see it. It's the Chicana, the Inca cross. There are many interpretations of the cross, debated even amongst the Inca themselves, but it's an extremely important symbol nonetheless. Per seismic imaging results, 25th of November, 1983. Massive oil fields beneath the village. I have conducted a physical examination of area and can confirm this to be the case. Recommend full drill operation. Porvenir will be back in the black. Village expendable. Recommend stage 01 outbreak if buyout ineffectual. We cannot allow the... Strange. The report cuts off mid-sentence. My sweet Abigail, it is time you learned the truth about your past and your responsibility for the future. You are a guardian, Abigail, as I was, as my mother was before me and hers before her, and so on and so on. All the way back to the time of Queen Aberrane, the mother of multitudes. Centuries ago, she led my people from the dry death of the great drought in Guatemala to the safety of this valley. On her deathbed, she chose a guardian from her line, and the responsibilities of mother were passed on. Eventually, that gift was given to me. Now, with my death, my sweet Abigail, I pass on the responsibility of guardian to you. You already know what to do. You've been doing it all your life. You are the mother of multitudes now. Keep our story well. It shows a great journey south, from Mexico to Peru. Thousands of people following their queen, escaping mass drought. Whoever was wearing this either had a splitting headache or they didn't leave at all. Wait, there's dried blood here. Here lies the missing man from Porvenir, killed in self-defense by Mariana Ortiz. You will not find a body, but this note instead. When I found him out, he attacked me, so I hit him on the head. It was his greed, not me, which made him dead. I'm sorry for his family that will never know his fate. If this note is discovered before I'm dead, you know where to find me. This place, it's an ancient forge. What were they crafting here? My fearless Koryanka, the quest for the shield must wait. Etzli has been captured and is being held in the old barracks. I'm taking a team to retrieve him, but I need you to open the way. You know your way around that hive better than anyone I know. Lara Croft, the outsider I told you about, has agreed to help as well. I like her, Koryanka. We can trust her. Be safe. This details the ordination ritual Koryanka mentioned. During the cleansing, after the cataclysms, the eclipse will appear. Using the key of Shakshal, open the silver box and absorb the energy of Kukulkan. So, the legend is true. The shield of the Age Maker exists. As much as it pains me to think, this knowledge can never find Unuratu's ears. If she knew that Sinchichika's shield was here, it would give her the courage she needs to rise in Sairi's place. I know she has already started to draw plans against me. We should be mourning Sairi's death together, as family. Instead, we are both plotting against the other. I wish it were different. I truly do. It looks like this very place. There are many men moving through it. Even more lay dead. And this, it's the shield. The prize they are all seeking. This is a trial. Just as Koryanka said, the path of Hurakan, the god of wind and storms. There's an eclipse. And here, fire, water. These are the cataclysms. It's a cleansing. Emperor Shinchichika stands at the highest point in the city. Hundreds of people are gathered below him, huddled beneath the shielded. He's remaking the world, bringing about the next age. This is right here, where I'm standing. It shows the shield of the Age Maker resting in its cradle. Its construction is so simple. Wooden boss, leather and arms, but the details are extraordinary. The front of the shield is embossed in gold and seems to tell an entire story. There's so much inscribed here, I can't quite make it all out. But here, this looks like it says, "Sacrifice the weaving." May the good Lord, in his infinite mercy, bless the souls of these loyal men and accept them into paradise eternal at his side. They served me well, and without their assistance, I surely would never have laid eyes upon what the Paititians call the shield of the Age Maker. It is with the deepest regret, therefore, as well as with a renewed commitment to my holy mission, that I have sent these men to their final reward. The secret that the shield revealed to me cannot be trusted with anyone other than myself, and so I left it behind, and upon returning here with my escort, I humbly performed my duty. In God's name, Amen. These are the blueprints for the instrument. The detail in the planning was extraordinary. This shows the twins, Hunanan and Hunchevin, leaving Paititi under cover of darkness. They journeyed deep into the woods and disappeared into the earth. The fault. Could this be the Valley of the Monkey Twins? It shows a procession of people coming to the Valley of the Gods, following sounds or song. They're all carrying their belongings and what looks like votive offerings. They must be worshippers. The Monkey Twins weren't ridiculed by everyone after fleeing Paititi. They were venerated by some. The symbol in the center reads Place of the Flooded Underworld. and with the symbol for pyramid in the uppermost position, the exposed symbols are, clockwise from the top, Nu, he who writes, fire, road. With yellow in the south, the exposed symbols are road, mountain, sky, east. This key was interred with Sairi's body, which means Amaru put it here. Was he trying to keep it preserved or keep it hidden? Probably both. There's a Mayan symbol on it, similar to the ones on the cipher wheel, representing north. Red in the north, the exposed symbols are dancing, tree, water, 9 or many. Sairi, here is some food to begin distributing to our people. I wish I'd managed to obtain it sooner, before you went hunting, especially since, as your older brother, the responsibility was mine, not yours. But you have always been as stubborn as the rest of our family. It comes from Trinity, that secret group of outsiders I was telling you about. They have promised me more, but first there is something I have to do for them. You can find me at the old village, beyond the gate that was put up to protect people from the red fungus. Amaru. The writing on the mural is Mayan, but it's an abridged quote from the Book of Revelation. I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the moon became as blood. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? And after the quote, an inscription, he who has proven his worth by walking this path of the righteous shall take his rightful place as first among the sanctified. The entire temple is a test for the leadership of Trinity. My dearest Sairi, I am leaving this for you here at the gateway to my greatest fear, in case I do not return. Trinity have, on more than one occasion, offered me the opportunity to join their number, and for several reasons I've delayed giving them a final answer. But I can delay no longer. They can provide the resources we need to feed Paititi and rescue our city from this terrible famine. So I put my fears aside, willing to risk even my very life for our people. And if I should pay the ultimate price, know that I did so with pride and with no regrets. Your loving brother, always, Amaru. As anticipated, Amaru has completed the 6th seal in exemplary fashion. In fact, he has earned the highest recorded score in the history of this trial, a testament not only to his considerable skill, but to his formidable determination. I judge him to be a more than worthy successor to my position. Signed, Dr. Dominguez. It's not a name. It's the title given to Trinity's leader. P.S. We will at once provide Paititi with the food necessary to relieve the famine, as promised to Amaru in exchange for committing to our cause. I don't recognize the symbols being used here. It almost looks like it's coded. Hakan tells me it's a secret language used by Amaru and his cult to pass sensitive information. It shows many warriors braving a trial of water and fire, and here, the prize at the end, that must be the Godslayer. It shows a mortal man killing a god with a bow. He's taking his crown and the throne. It's the Godslayer. I must be close. Day 1, Location 1, no signal. Day 1, Location 2, contact, too much static for clear communication. Day 1, Location 3, contact, told to wait for extraction several days on account of all resources being required at Khan. Day 2, Locations 1 and 2, no signal. Day 2, Location 3, intermittent contact, same message as previous. All subsequent days, all locations, 0 contact. Suspect strong interference from volcanic activity. From the age of the paper, this must have been left here decades ago. O great Zapakna, creator of the mountains, destroyer of the foolhardy, and guardian of the flames beneath the earth, Grant that my son and my daughter should walk on your mantle in safety and prosperity. May your might and your wisdom be with them always. The Maya god Zapakna, brother of Kabra Khan, god of earthquakes. Zapakna is often depicted as a giant caiman and is known for his destructiveness, arrogance, and volatility. The crab is traditionally Zapakna's favorite food. In order to set a trap, the hero twins created a decoy crab and used it as bait for him. It worked. Based on the design of this crab, it was probably created as an elaborate offering. It must occupy a place of central importance in the temple of Zapakna. These are notes the missionary took while he was in Paititi, at the resting place of the Silver Box. They describe a network of tunnels underground leading all the way from Paititi to here. Based on what Lopez found, he made calculations for overland travel, which is why he ended his travels at the Mission of St. John. He wasn't just digging the catacombs to hide the box, he was looking for these caverns. It proclaims that this shrine was built to honor Shakik, mother of the hero twins, creator of the silver box of Ishel and the key of Shakshel, and mother of their protectors, the Yashil. Those who have served Shakik with honor shall be granted the eternal reward of returning to their mother. The Yashil have proven their worthiness. As a final test, they solved the mystery of this shrine to Shakik, opening the gateway. Then they formed a procession and left this plane, returning to the one from which they came.